the insane execution of Nazi General Alfred Jodl. During World War II, several Nazi generals were intimately involved in the development of execution of policies and directives that resulted in the persecution, torture, and slaughter of millions of innocent people, Romani people, homosexuals, and other minorities, and the use of concentration camps, gas chambers, and other types of heinous cruelty. One such general was Alfred Jodl, who was then executed. Let's discuss his story. Alfred Joseph Ferdinand Jodl was a German Generaloberst who served as the Oberkommander der Wehrmachts's head of the operations staff throughout World War II. Alfred Jodl attended a military cadet school in Munich and graduated in 1910. His younger brother, Ferdinand Jodl, would go on to become an army commander as well. At the University of Vienna, he was the nephew of philosopher and psychologist Friedrich Jodl. Jodl was raised Roman Catholic, but eventually renounced the church. From 1914 to 1916, he served with a battery unit on the Western Front, earning the Iron Cross, second class for valor, and was wounded in action in November 1914. He briefly served on the Eastern Front in 1917 before returning to the Western Front as a staff officer. He was awarded the Iron Cross, first class, for valor in battle in 1918. After the German Empire was defeated in 1918, he maintained his career as a professional soldier in the greatly smaller German army. Jodl married twice, first in 1913 and once in 1944. In the later years of the Weimar Republic, Jodl was appointed as a major in the operations divisions of the Truppennahme in the Army High Command. Reporting to General Ludwig Beck, Jodl first met Adolf Hitler in September 1939. During the buildup of World War II, Jodl was ostensibly designated as commander of the 44th Division from October 1938 to August 1939, following the Anschluss. On August 23, 1939, just before the German invasion of Poland, Hitler appointed him chief of the operations staff of the newly constituted Oberkommando der Wehrmacht (OKW). During the invasion of Denmark and Norway, Jodl served as chief of staff. With the fall of France, Jodl was enthusiastic about Germany's triumph over Britain, saying on June 30, 1940, "The decisive German victory over England is now only a matter of time." Jodl spent most of the war at Hitler's advanced command post in East Prussia, the Wolf's Lair. He was elevated to the rank of Generaloberst, Colonel General, on February 1, 1944. He was among those who were mildly hurt during the July 20, 1944 plan against Hitler, which resulted in a concussion. Grob Admiral Karl Donitz, who had replaced Hitler as leader of Germany and its armed forces on April 30, 1945, awarded Jodl the Knight's Cross of the Iron Cross on May 6, 1945. Donitz dispatched Jodl to react to the demand for rapid, simultaneous, and unconditional surrender on all fronts. After regional surrenders of German forces in Europe, on behalf of the OKW, Jodl signed the German Instrument of Surrender on May 7, 1945, in Reims. Jodl and the rest of Donitz's Flensburg government were seized by British soldiers on May 23, 1945, and taken to Camp Ashken before being brought before the International Military Tribunal at the Nuremberg trials. He was charged with conspiracy to conduct crimes against peace and plan, launch, and wage aggressive wars, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. The main allegations against him were connected to his signature on the Commando Order and the Commissar Order, both of which directed the summary execution of particular types of prisoners of war upon arrest. When challenged with the 1941 mass murders of Soviet POWs, Jodl said that the only inmates killed were those who could not, but those who refused to move. At his trial, he was further charged with wrongful deportation and aiding and abetting execution. His signature on the order transferring Danish residents, including Jews, to German concentration camps was presented as proof. While he denied any involvement in the regime's activities, the court upheld his guilt based on the evidence presented, with French Judge Henri Donadieu de Varbès dissenting. Louise, his wife, joined her husband's defense squad. After that, in an interview with Gitta Sereny, while writing her biography of Albert Speer, Louise said that the Allied prosecution filed allegations against Jodl based on materials that they refused to disclose with the defense. Yet Jodl demonstrated that some of the claims against him were false, such as the charge that he assisted Hitler in gaining control of Germany in 1933. Jodl pleaded not guilty in front of God, history, and my countrymen. On October 16, 1946, he was executed at Nuremberg prison after being found guilty on all 4 charges. According to reports, Jodl's last words were, "I salute you, my eternal Germany." His ashes, along with those of the other 9 executed men and Hermann Göring, who had committed suicide prior to his scheduled execution, were scattered in the Wensbach, a small tributary of the river Isar, to prevent the establishment of a permanent burial site that neo-Nazis could enshrine. Later, a cross in his honor was put on the family tomb on the Frauensee in Bavaria. The cross was ordered to be removed by local council in 2018, but in March 2019, a Munich court affirmed Jodl's relatives' right to keep the family tomb, citing the family's readiness to erase his name. On February 28, 1953, when his wife Louise tried to retrieve her pension and her inheritance, a West German denazification court judged Jodl not guilty of violating international law, citing Henry Denedu de Vabre's 1949 rejection of Jodl's conviction. After concerns from the United States, the Minister of Political Liberation for Bavaria reversed the not guilty statement on September 3, 1953. Nonetheless, the repercussions of the acquittal on Jodl's inheritance were preserved. If we talk about the executions in Nuremberg, the Nuremberg executions took place on October 16, 1946, shortly after the Nuremberg trials concluded. Hans Frank, Wilhelm Frick, Alfred Jodl, Ernst Kaltenbrunner, Wilhelm Keitel, Joachim von Ribbentrop, Alfred Rosenberg, Fritz Sokol, Arthur Seyss Inquart, and Julius Steicher were among the 10 senior members of Nazi Germany's political and military leadership that were hanged. Hermann Göring was also supposed to be hung on that day, but committed himself the night before to taking a potassium cyanide capsule. Martin Bormann was similarly sentenced to death in absentia. His whereabouts were unclear at the time, but it is now known that he committed himself or was murdered by Soviet soldiers while attempting to flee Berlin on May 2, 1945. The penalties were carried out in the gymnasium of Nuremberg prison by the U.S. Army using the regular drop method rather than the lengthy drop method. Master Sergeant John C. Woods and his aide, military policeman Joseph Malta, were the executioners. Woods allegedly underestimated the lengths of the rope used in the execution, causing some inmates to choke to death rather than die swiftly from an unexpected broken neck. According to some sources, some executions lasted between 14 and 28 minutes. The Army refuted reports that the drop was too short, or that the condemned died of strangling rather than a broken neck. Moreover, the trapdoor was excessively narrow, and some of the condemned received severe head injuries as they collided with the trapdoor's sides while falling through. The victims were supposed to have been transferred to Dachau for cremation, but they were really burnt at a Munich crematorium, and the ashes were dispersed over the Isar River. The International News Service's Kingsbury Smith provided an eyewitness report of the hangings. His story was published in newspapers along with photographs. Several Nazi generals, like Heinrich Himmler, were well known for their cruelty and sadism against captives, while many others were complicit in war crimes and atrocities. Moreover, Nazi ideology was based on the Aryan racist supremacy and the necessity to destroy inferior races, which resulted in a culture of brutality and dehumanization. Nonetheless, it should be noted that not all Nazi generals were equally brutal or implicated in war crimes to the same level. Some may have been involved in the Nazi regime's acts, but did not actively participate in crimes, while others may have worked from within to combat the dictatorship. Nonetheless, the actions of the Nazi regime and its generals have rightfully been condemned as among the most heinous and unforgivable crimes in human history. But with the fall of Nazi Germany in World War II, the Nazi horror ended. The Allied powers, commanded by the United States, the United Kingdom, and the Soviet Union, conducted a long, tough battle against Nazi forces on various fronts in Europe, Africa, and Asia. The conflict ended with Germany's defeat and eventual surrender of its military forces in 1945. The war's conclusion also signaled the start of a protracted process of denazification in Germany, intending to destroy the remains of the Nazi system and its ideology. This included a variety of tactics, such as prosecuting war criminals, confiscating Nazi assets, and re-educating the German populace to reject Nazi ideology and embrace democratic ideals. Thank you for stopping by to watch. Please subscribe to the channel and post your video recommendations in the comments area if you want us to do more films like this.